He was blind, starving, and so desperate for food, he started eating rocks. Abandoned with no one to care, this tiny puppy's story could have ended in tragedy. But what happened next will shock you and may just restore your faith in humanity. Don't scroll away. This story deserves to be heard. It was a quiet morning on the outskirts of a rural town when Emily, a young veterinary intern, took her usual shortcut through a gravel path to get to work. The air was crisp and the road was empty until she heard a strange, faint sound. At first, she thought it was just a bird or some rustling leaves. But as she got closer, the sound grew clearer, a soft whimpering, almost like a cry for help. Emily followed the sound to a ditch near the side of the road. That's when she saw him, a tiny, frail German Shepherd puppy, barely 8 weeks old, curled into himself like he was trying to disappear. His fur was matted, his ribs showed through his skin, and worst of all, his eyes were clouded over completely. He was blind, but that wasn't the most heartbreaking part. As Emily knelt down, she noticed tiny pebbles around his mouth. The puppy had been eating rocks, out of hunger, out of desperation. It was the only thing he could find. She reached out gently, and he recoiled at first, trembling. But Emily stayed still, whispering softly. And finally, the puppy took one cautious step forward, toward hope. Emily gently lifted the blind puppy into her arms, careful not to startle him further. He didn't resist, he didn't even whimper. It was like he had given up already. His tiny body was limp, cold, and heartbreakingly light. His fur was tangled with dirt and debris, and as she held him closer, she could feel every bone beneath his skin. The more she looked, the more disturbing it became. His teeth were chipped, not from play, but from gnawing on stones. Emily realized this wasn't a case of temporary neglect. This puppy had been surviving alone, blind and starving, for days, maybe even weeks. At the clinic, they ran emergency tests. The results were worse than expected. He had parasites, an infection in one eye socket, and his stomach was filled with pebbles. No microchip, no collar, no signs that anyone had ever cared for him. Emily couldn't understand how someone could abandon a blind puppy like this to starve and suffer in silence. She stood over the exam table, fists clenched, heartbreaking. Most puppies his age were playing, cuddled in warm homes. But this one, he had learned that the world was cruel long before he ever got the chance to see it. Emily didn't sleep that night. The image of the blind puppy, now nicknamed Rocky, haunted her every thought. Most shelters wouldn't take in a puppy with such severe medical needs, and even fewer would consider a blind dog adoptable. But Emily refused to let that be the end of Rocky's story. She made a decision that would change both of their lives. She would foster him herself. The first few days were rough. Rocky didn't trust people. Every sound made him flinch. He wouldn't eat unless the room was completely silent. He bumped into walls, yelped at sudden noises, and had to be carried, just to go outside. But Emily was patient. She cleared her apartment of obstacles, laid down soft rugs to help him feel safe, and spent hours sitting beside him in silence, just so he knew he wasn't alone. Medical bills started piling up. Rocky needed surgery to remove infected tissue, medication to fight the parasites, and specialized food to heal his damaged stomach. Emily launched a small fundraiser, hoping for a few donations. What she didn't expect was an outpouring of support. Dozens of strangers moved by Rocky's story began donating, sharing, and sending messages of hope. For the first time, Rocky had a chance. And though he couldn't see it, he could feel it in the soft touch of Emily's hand, the warmth of a clean blanket, and the sound of someone whispering, "You're safe now." He didn't just get rescued. He began to heal. The first time Rocky wagged his tail, Emily cried. It happened a week after he came home from surgery. She had been gently brushing his fur, humming softly, when his little tail gave a single, unsure wag. It was barely noticeable, but to Emily, it was everything. It meant he felt something he hadn't in a long time: safety. From that moment on, Rocky began to change. Slowly, he started exploring the apartment, nose first, cautiously feeling his way through hallways and furniture. Emily added textured rugs and scent markers to help him navigate. He no longer cried at night. He'd curl into his soft bed, sigh, and drift into a peaceful sleep. He even learned the sound of Emily's voice and would turn his head whenever she spoke, ears perked. tail wagging. His appetite returned too. No more chewing on rocks or trash. Just healthy meals, spoon-fed with care in the beginning. And treats. Lots of treats. Rocky's body began to heal, but something deeper was happening too. His spirit, once so broken, was mending. He began to trust. He learned to play with soft toys, to walk on a leash without fear, to cuddle up next to Emily, on the couch. But perhaps the most remarkable thing was this. Despite everything he loved, blind, abandoned, starving, and still he chose love. Each time he leaned his head into Emily's hand, it was a silent thank you. Not for saving him, but for believing he was worth saving. 3 months after he was found in that ditch, Rocky was almost unrecognizable. His fur had grown thick and shiny. His tiny frame filled out with strength. He could navigate Emily's apartment with confidence, tail wagging like a metronome of joy. He even learned a few commands using touch and sound. He was no longer just surviving. He was truly living. Then came the bittersweet moment Emily always knew would come. A family applied to adopt him. They had experience with special needs dogs. Their home had been prepared for weeks. And when they met Rocky, something clicked instantly. Their young daughter sat beside him, quietly offering her hand. Rocky, who once cowered at any touch, gently nudged her palm with his nose and laid down at her feet. Emily's heart swelled and broke at the same time. On adoption day, she kissed Rocky on the forehead and whispered, "You were never broken. Just waiting for someone to see you." Rocky pressed into her one last time before stepping into his new life, tail wagging, head high. He couldn't see his future, but he walked into it bravely. And this time, he wasn't alone. Rocky's journey wasn't just about one blind puppy. It was a reminder of something deeper, that even the most broken souls can be rebuilt with love, patience, and kindness. It would have been easy for Emily to walk past that ditch that morning, to assume the whimpering sound was nothing. But instead, she listened. She stopped. She chose compassion over convenience, and that one small act changed everything. Rocky had every reason to be angry, fearful, or distant, but instead, he forgave. He opened his heart to trust again. Even in the dark, he found light in the warmth of someone's care. And that's the part that moves people most. Not just that he survived, but that he thrived. In a world where stories of cruelty often steal the spotlight, Rocky's story is proof that goodness still exists, that one person can make a difference, that healing is possible even after the worst of beginnings. So if you ever wonder whether kindness matters, remember Rocky. Remember that blind, starving puppy who once ate rocks to stay alive, and who now runs free, loved and safe, because someone believed he was worth saving. And he was.